Welcome, everybody, to What's Next Beyond Service. Today is episode 31 entitled The Sage. And to that end, our guest today is William Bill, for those of you that know him. If not, I'm sure he'll be okay with you calling him Bill, Kieffer. Bill, welcome aboard to What's Next Beyond Service.
Thank you, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. We're very happy to have you. So for those that are connected with Bill on LinkedIn, you probably have some background of who Bill is. But for the benefit of other folks, I'm going to give you a quick kind of rundown on Bill. Now, Bill served as in the Army as an officer, served for nearly 12 years and transitioned out in 1997. And he spent the past 25 years of his life in corporate America in the HR role, as an executive. So he's been in, top tier positions in different organizations for the past 25 years. He's a master trainer with Ranger for Life. He's also an advisory board member for Law Enforcement Connect and also the Honor Foundation. And he's the best-selling author of his book, Military Career Transition, Insights from the employer's side of the desk, which I'm very excited to talk about today in our interview. He is currently the president and chief advisor of Kieffer and Associates Limited. So that's his own business. And he volunteers in a big way with six different organizations, which we'll probably have a little bit of time at the end to talk about that. So that's a little bit about Bill. Now we're going to get into talking transition because that's what this podcast is all about. Now, for those of you that have watched this show, there's a bit of a battle rhythm to how we do this, a process, and I like to spend the bulk of the time talking about the individual's transition from military service. Now, we're going to talk a bit about that today, but what I want to focus most of our time on is Bill's vast experience in corporate America and the book that he's written, because that perspective I think is something that most of us who transition from military service, whether it's a career 20, 30 years or one or two tours, we don't really know what we don't know when it comes to what folks on the other side, those employers, what they're looking for, how they think, things that are important for you to know that Bill absolutely has knowledge on. So that's what we're going to focus most of our time on today in the interview. Now, with that said, process-wise, we're going to talk a little bit. Bill's going to provide us kind of an overview of his time in the military, give us some highlights on his transition. Then again, the bulk of our time is going to be focused on insights from employers, his perspective as an employer, his time in the HR field. And then from that, we'll talk about what he's doing currently with his business. Certainly his book is going to be a big part of the discussion. So, that'll probably filter throughout the conversation. It will be something that he'll, refer to. And then lastly, again, if we have time, we'll talk about volunteering and then where Bill finds purpose in life outside of work itself. So that's our list of objectives to accomplish here today, Bill. So with that, I want to go ahead and get this started and turn it over to you. Thanks again for your time today. And if we can start out by, you give us a little bit of background on military service. If you even want to talk about, something about you prior to your military service, that's absolutely fine too. So with that, Bill, I'm going to pass the baton to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate the opportunity here. Yeah, I'm a small town Ohio guy. I'm in the flyover states. I was born and raised in a little town. I'm back in now. We have 1,400 people here, and it's an agricultural town in the Rust Belt. And I'll tell you what, it's a little bit like Mayberry RFD. It's a great place to be, especially if you want some peace and quiet. So it was good. Born and raised here, went through the ROTC program at University of Toledo. I got commissioned as an ordnance officer and did my first tour with the 7th Infantry Division Light out at Fort Ord, California at the time. Now 7th ID is up at JBLM, I think.
Right.
Supported the Panama invasion, did some stuff in Honduras in the mid-late 80s. Honduras based, we'll say. Went off the officer advanced course, and I said, send me the 82nd. They said, great, we're going to send you to Fort Drum. I said, what's up there? And they said, it's the 10th Mountain Division, which I had never heard of. I wound up spending 4 years with 10th Mountain Division, doing some good work there, including Operation Restore Hope, the early Somalia stuff. Branch called and said, hey, you're pretty good at this low intensity conflict. They called it at the time, unconventional warfare support, logistics support. We want you to come to Fort Lee, Virginia and help rewrite the logistics officer advanced course, which I was part of a team, enjoyed that. While I was there, I was selected for 04 major for your Army types. And very shortly thereafter found out I was getting a divorce. I had no intention of transitioning from the military, none. But I had 3 small kids that I needed to be as close to as possible. So I walked away from a career I loved while I was on a promotion list. That didn't exactly.
That's a big deal. That's a huge thing it's a big change in life. Absolutely.
Huge change. Because I did that, the folks at the assignments branch weren't particularly happy with me. And they said, you owe us another year. And we're going to help you out as best we can. We're going to get you to Toledo, Ohio. Thought, oh my God, what's in oh my God, it's recruiting command. So at the time, I thought they were sending me to purgatory. What I didn't realize is they were putting me in contact with a civilian business world and a civilian community that I wanted to be in after my military career. I didn't realize it at the time. Right. It was only after I screwed a few things up and stumbled through transition. I thought, pretty good move. So anyway,
silver lining, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I got out. Got a first job doing economic development work for the county I live in. Great job, didn't pay well. I learned how to network my way into a bigger company for a 300% pay raise. And then started that great career doing HR and talent management at strategic levels for large, complex, multi-billion-dollar global companies. 2018, I decided I had enough fun in corporate America. And I checked my finances and went, I think I can take a little risk and kind of chase a passion. And that was to hang out a shingle and become an entrepreneur. The work I do now focuses primarily on helping bridge the culture gap between military veterans and the civilian work world. That's kind of a walk from yesterday to today.
All right. Well, no, that's very succinct. And first of all, thanks for your service, Bill. Service, no matter how long you're in, is admirable, and it is foundational to the continuance of our democracy, our way of life. And it's always a pleasure talking to veterans, but certainly to have folks of your caliber on our show. So I just want to thank you up front for, again, your time and service. And you have a unique position in terms of people that I have brought on the program. Most of the folks that I've brought on have been relatively close to their time in service, so they've transitioned and maybe they're on their first, second job, just a few years maybe from transition, for the relevancy for people who are coming out of service, that the experience of, hey, this is what it's like now as a guy or a gal leaving service. But as I talked about in the beginning, what I think is huge and important, and certainly why you're here, is because of the kind of the subtitle on your book. You have insight from 20 plus years, 25 years, if you will, in corporate America, working in HR, working in the talent field. So what folks are looking for. You understand the process involved in that transition, in interfacing with hiring managers, with interviews. I mean, there's just so much to delve into. And I think this is going to be a huge resource for people, and not just people that are transitioning, but, even folks that are, maybe new to the job market or looking to transition from, what they're doing now into something different, and just understanding how to map out and run things when you're interfacing with people who are looking to hire. So that's what I'm really excited about with today's discussion. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about that. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to really, kind of guide any of this discussion because I want this to be, a kind of a free-ranging discussion on the things that you feel are important as they apply to, the premise of your book. So let's just start right there.
It seems to me that there's a tremendous amount of good work that goes on in the military veteran career transition space, right? Far more today than there were for folks in my period and folks before me, right? And that's all wonderful. But one of the things that I rarely hear being well covered is, what do the employers expect? What do the employers want? Now, there's job fairs and there's groups out there going, hey, let's connect you with employers and then those kind of things. And that's good. But this whole topic of not covering employer expectations thoroughly just befuddles me, because it's the employers that have the jobs.
Right.
So, why aren't we talking about that? And, I get it. I got out, I didn't have any idea what I was doing, and I didn't understand, what employers expected. So, I turned to folks in my tribe, if you will, and, they gave me the best advice they could from their perspective. And some of it helped, but not all of it was really accurate. So as I got out and went through my transition trips and falls and fits and starts, I learned, and I kept notes along the way. And once I landed, I helped veterans informally while I was doing my corporate duties, right? Run across somebody, go, hey, I'm getting out, can you help? Sure. And the discussion more and more focused on, hey, what do you employers want and need? So I thought, wait, there's a gap here. There's not just a culture gap between military service members and the civilian work environment. There's a gap in what information is being shared to those folks that are about to get into the civilian world. And if you think about that, it's almost the exact opposite of what happens when you join the military. So whether you came in enlisted or officer, doesn't really matter, whatever branch of service, you were entering an established organization with a very rigorous acceptance, interview, selection, training, onboarding process that had been in existence for hundreds of years, maybe generations,
Yeah, you're right. That's sorry to interrupt it, but it's an absolute indoctrination in the onboarding, right? There's new language, there's terminology, there's things that, you would have never done in your civilian life that you have to quickly kind of tune into. Absolutely.
The actions, the behaviors, the cultural norms, the if that's all different, and it's all trained and it's recognized as different by the gaining agency, in this case, the military branch of service that you're entering. And they do all this great work, really, if you think about it, to get you capable of doing two things. Okay. And that's to do the work they need done, regardless of what your MOS or FSC was, or rate, whatever that was. They train you to do that work well, right? The second thing they do is they train you to fit well and be a value-adding member of the team. The behavioral stuff and the soft skills or cultural stuff, right? And the technical. So that's what you're used to, right? Whether you did a 4-year enlistment or a 30-year career, whatever it was, you've got this expectation by experience that, hey, look, if I'm going to move to something else, there's something there to help me get ready for it. And then you come to the end of your career. And there's TAP, and that does what it does. It's effective to the degree that it's effective. I will say 99.99% of the folks that I've talked to over the years have found it a little wanting, maybe not quite as robust as they'd like.
I would agree. Yep.
And there's a bunch of VSOs, veteran service organizations, that all have their little niche that do some great things, okay? But it's not a coordinated, robust, integrated process at all close to what you experienced when you came into the military. The other bit that's different, when you come into the military, you're surrounded by folks, everything from the recruiting station to MEPS to the basic training. You're surrounded by people who are there to cause you to succeed. You're entering into something that exists and you're becoming a part of something bigger, right? And then when you're on active duty or even in the reserve, but you're in the military, everything around you is there to cause you, your unit, your team, your mission to be successful, right? From how you're organized, from how you're structured, from base support, how you're resourced, how you're trained, PXs, Navy exchanges, family support groups, religious, it's all there. So you can focus on doing what you need to do to perform your job well, and fit well, and be a value-adding member of the team. And then comes transition. You may or may not be cut loose out of your regular daily duties to attend to it. And whenever you're to the DD-214 point, you may or may not have built yourself a tribe that gives you that robust sense of support around you, but you're certainly not going to enter a neat, clean, clear thing that's established. You're entering the world of the possible. And that is a scary, different place because you don't know how to deal with all the possibilities. There's no framework.
Yes. Yeah. It's like when you think of the concept of, life outside of our universe, what's, just the vastness of everything out there. What are the possibilities, right? I mean, it's kind of like that. You're coming into a void of the unknown. And, what you just talked about, with tribe and, being connected, that is, I've found that that's so important. And it's through a learning process. I didn't know that when I got out in 2012. I made a decision to retire and then it came quickly. So, I didn't have, things lined up. I didn't, I was just on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn's not like it was, now it's prolific and it's used in a lot of different ways. It's very different in 2012. And yes, not understanding the importance of building a network outside of the military, even the veteran network, that's huge. Having a connection in the veteran network outside of active duty or reserve force. And then the importance of figuring out who to connect to on the outside, in the corporate world or whatever it is you're looking to do, whether it's education, that's so many folks that are transitioning just don't have that on the front end, and they're learning, right, because of things like this and organizations. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, please, go ahead.
Well, that's kind of a new world circumstance for people. I like to say you come out and you've got the cereal aisle conundrum you have to deal with. And but as kids, you go to the grocery store and you look down the cereal aisle, and there's more darn cereal than you can imagine. And it's like, how do I decide? Usually by whichever kid's being the loudest in my case, but whatever.
Well, and the other thing, Bill, is all the sweet stuff at the very bottom, at kid eye level, right? All the good stuff higher up.
The sweet stuff may not be what's good for you. And if you transition, if you translate that to the transition space, oftentimes people chase shiny things, I say. They don't know what they want. They don't know what they're looking for. They don't know how to evaluate opportunities. And they go, ooh, there's a shiny opportunity. Let's go chase that. And they look into it and go, ooh, that really wasn't that good. Or worse, they go, yeah, that's pretty sexy. Let's try it, and find out, it's not really what it was advertised to be. So one of the things that I think is really important for our military veterans is to leverage the decision-making skills that they gained in the military. Regardless of your rank or your years of experience, you've learned how to make decisions. You've learned how to assess situations. And it kind of befuddles me again, because when it comes to transitions, somehow that seems to leave people's brains and they go, this is all emotional and it's hard. And I said, wait, stop. When I coach folks individually, I go, let's deal with the emotion and the uncertainty of it all. But how can you not just honor your past, but leverage what you've learned in this new environment, right? So I start with, let's think about this as a decision model. Let's think about this as a decision cycle. What are you trying to solve? Because, you can't solve a problem until you identify the problem, right?
Absolutely.
So what are we solving for? What's the X here? And another way to say that is, what do you want to do when you get out? And a lot of times, I don't know. There's too many choices. I don't know how to make that decision. And I get it, and I did it early. Because when you're faced with uncertainty and a world of possibilities, you want to cast a wide net, because you don't want to eliminate maybe great possibilities that you're not quite sure are great yet, right? The problem is you can't ride two horses with one saddle.
Right.
So you want to cast a wide net, and you want to do that early on, but cast the wide net to help you identify the problem, to help you identify potential courses of action, to help you identify the selection criteria by which you're going to evaluate the opportunities. And this has been really effective with folks. If we can take a step back from the emotion and really kind of get into the logical brain thing, okay, problem solve this thing. People go, oh, okay, wait a minute. My criteria, number one, is I need to be in whatever location, Bozeman, Montana. I don't know. Okay. That's my number one. I need to be there. And then when I coach them, I dig into it. I go, well, why? Well, because that's where the company is that I want to work for. Okay. So your criteria really is the company, not the location. Or they might say because that's where family is. Okay. Or they might say because there's great mountain goat hunting up there. I don't know.
And that happens, right?
You can get them down to this is the root. This is the primary driver for why I'm making decisions. We can then, now we've got a toehold into success, right? In my case, geography was it. I got out not knowing what I was going to do or how I was going to do it, but I knew I needed to be in the Toledo, Ohio area. Okay. That was my main criteria. After that, my second criteria was financial stability for my family. That had nothing to do with a job title or a company or an industry. But once I knew financial stability in Toledo was it, now I said, okay, how are you going to achieve that? Well, I got to find a job. Well, great. Doing what? And then you start doing all those things that people typically do in career transition. But if I didn't have that clarity up front, I'd have stumbled even longer and harder than I did in my case. And bear in mind, when I got out, it was 97. There was no LinkedIn. There was no feed. I mean, I was actually looking at a hard copy of the Yellow Pages. For those younger listeners, that was actually a book. It was,
they were still using Flintstone, back then to start fires too. Yeah, I'm kidding, but hey, but no, I want to jump in here real quick, Bill, because something that you and I talked about the other day on the phone was at this point when people are transitioning, they get that deer in the headlights look because of everything coming their way. And because they've never done it, it can absolutely be overwhelming for all the things that you said and more. And, there's a planning process that most of us are subjected to in the military, some more than others, depending on what your occupation was. But, there's also problem solving that happens. And, if you're a mechanic, there's a way to go about, determining, what's wrong with the equipment, right? You analyze and, you have an SOP for how, so it's all that stuff is very similar. And I remember we shared that, when people are doing their job, that just comes natural because that's what they do. And then when they shift gears and they're looking at the abyss, they forget about those skills that you just talked about, right? To be able to kind of identify, the big ticket items on what do you need to cover? What are the important things that you need to make sure you're going to be able to do relatively quickly, or those main things of where you want to be and why. Yeah, it seems like that's something that should just come to folks naturally, but it's a very different feeling when you're at that precipice and you kind of forget about those skills that you've learned that you can smartly apply to transition.
100% agree. And I think a lot of that is because you're now at that abyss, most people, with no team. There's nobody around.
Right.
Your network, guess what? They're still wearing the green suit or the blue suit, or if you happen to be a first responder, the police or fire or EMS, EMT uniforms. They're still there doing what you're familiar with. You're now in an entirely different place. And individually, there may be great folks that are trying to help you from what they know, but they haven't been where you are or where you're going. So you get all caught up in the sense of loss. You get caught up in the sense of wonder. You get caught up in this confusion. And kind of the logical thought process oftentimes, unfortunately, disconnects. So what I try to do is help people go, okay, hang on. You're not at the edge of an abyss. You're on the first step of a journey. So if you can look at it a little bit differently and go, okay, I don't know where this is going. There is no yellow brick road, but I know I'm on the first step of a journey. And you know what? There's going to be times when it's going to be a great, easy downhill slope into, you know, and with the wind at my back. And there's other times you're going to be slogging through the mud and the dirt in the dark. And alligators nipping at your ankles or, you know, elbows or whatever else. If you can get past the abyss thought and go, okay, this is just a journey. I got to figure out what the destination is, and I got to figure out how to make that journey well. If you can do that, you're going to dramatically make life easier and improve the effectiveness and efficiency of your transition and job search.
No, absolutely. And, you know, about the, you know, timing with all of this, you know, there's a lot of folks that have opinions about when to start transition. So, you know, obviously transition may come sooner than you were thinking it would be, but if you know it's coming, what is your expert opinion on how soon someone should start doing the things you need to begin doing for a transition?
So regardless of when you expect or anticipate your transition may come, start today. I mean, right now, start now. If all you've got is a month, guess what? You're behind the power curve, but at least you started today. If it's 30 years down the road, start thinking today. That uniform is going to come off. And if it's the further out it is, the easier it is, the smaller bites you have to take of the elephant, right? So you get in, you're a brand new, I don't know, infantry officer, a new a Marine recon guy, whatever. You know, this uniform is going to come off someday. It might be in 4 years, it might be in 30 years. What do I want to do when I grow up? And maybe that's as far as your prep goes early on. I had years ago, I was still in the military, I was up Fort Drum, and I had a battalion commander that I worked with, and he had actively was working on a resume. I said, Colonel, you getting out? He goes, no. Then why are you working on a resume? I was short-sighted. You know, what do I know? I was just some snot-nosed captain, right?
Yeah, you thought you had some news for everybody.
He goes, well, I'm going to get out eventually because I figure I got 5 years, but the more work I do now, the easier it's going to be later. I thought, that's genius. That's genius. So anytime anybody asks, when should I start? Start today.
Right.
Well, maybe just start simple. And again, I like to tell folks, you know, and those with a military background and probably our law enforcement folks too, you can't hit a target you haven't identified, right?
Huh, that's true.
So what's your target? Now you may get lucky and hit it. I mean, you know, sometimes random luck occurs. But if you don't know what your target is, you're going to waste a lot of effort, a lot of energy, and a lot of ammo trying to hit it. Well, guess what? Same applies in career transition. So at the very early stages, what do you want to be when you grow up? The other thing I tell people is they have to understand who they are and what they're bringing to the party. When I coach folks independently, that's the first step. Who are you? What are you bringing to the party? The good, the bad, the ugly. What's the baggage? What's the benefits? What's the capabilities that you bring? And then we start to refine it, kind of get you out of the mill speak and veteranese kind of language and start thinking about it in civilian employment terms. And then the key question after is, how do you define success? And we see where that goes. Okay. And that's iterative work. Very few people know that up front. Some do, but very few people know that up front. So I'll suggest the closer you're getting to transition, and I'd like to say you need to start thinking in earnest about 24 months out to really do this. More rigorous and structured you're going to have to be in your approach, right? So what do I want to do? Well, I don't know. Who am I and what do I bring to the party? How do I define success? Okay. One of the phrases I use with folks, and this tends to resonate well, is you can't cram for the transition exam.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It resonates with me anyhow.
Yeah. I mean, I crammed and, you know, I used to be tall, thin, and good looking, you know, and transition took that all away. Yeah.
Yeah, you get gray real quick, right? Yeah. Well, when so let's kind of talk about you know the employer's side of the desk part of what I want you to enlighten folks on. So people always talk about what they and start talking about what I want to do and where I want to live, the things that you were talking about, and then they have expectations on, well, hey, I'm educated, I spent a career in logistics, this is going to be easy because I already know what they're looking for, or at least you think you do, right? And so people in the absence of knowledge make assumptions, and if they're not verifying those assumptions, they'll get into an interview, or they'll begin a process, and because they either haven't done their work or because they just don't understand the organization that they're looking to get into, you know uh, what are some things from the employer perspective that you can shine lights on for people who are actively seeking, now they've left and they still haven't found a job, and they're looking to do that? What are some things that you can give them for a little bit of a lifeline?
Yeah, okay, and that's a great way to open this up. And I mentioned earlier the key point here. Employers hire people for two reasons, and that's it. Can you do the work we need done, and are you going to fit well and add value to the team? That's it. Everything else in this transition from the employer standpoint rolls down to that. I don't know how many times I've sat in interview review panels, said, okay, who's best capable to do the work and who do you think is going to fit the team? That's the questions. Okay. So the important part here that transitioning folks need to remember is it's your job to convince the employer. Look, they got work that needs to be done, and they've got a ton of things going on beyond just this particular job search, right? Your career transition, your job search is your number one priority. It's a very minor dot on a very busy radar screen for employers. Employers think broadly and generally, it's a gross generalization. They think about people, product or service, and process. And things generally fall in those buckets. Well, the people process bifurcates into current employees and future employees. And there's a ton of work you got to do to take care of your current employees, right? Think about when you were in the military. If you're in a position of authority, in a leadership position, how much time did you spend thinking about adding new people to the team? My guess is it wasn't much, right?
Right.
Your focus was on doing the best you can for the people that you have so you can execute the mission well and take care of your folks, right? That logic, although it's spoken differently, isn't lost in the civilian world. So just because there's one job opening that you're really interested in and you're convinced you're the best for, don't expect that the employee is going to make you a priority at all. It's not personal. It's just not where their head is. Another thing to remember in the job search, I ran a couple of recruiting departments for these big companies. And, our typical load for each internal recruiter sometimes ran up to 40 different jobs at a time.
Wow.
And sometimes that was for multiple incumbents. Maybe each of those jobs, we needed 10 of them or 6 of them or maybe 50 of them. And for each of those postings, you might get hundreds or thousands of applicants. It's a simple matter of volume. The workload for the employers and the staff the employers are dealing with for filling those jobs, it is a heavy burden, right? So employers are not particularly looking for you. They're looking to get the work done and add value-adding team members. So you have to stand out in some positive way, okay?
Yeah, differentiate yourself from the pack. Yeah.
You got to differentiate yourself, and you got to differentiate yourself positively. That could be because you have unique technical capabilities that they're really interested in. It could be because you have great, recognized, and well-presented behavioral skills and capabilities, soft skill stuff maybe. It could be that you're well-connected to people that are influential in that company.
Right.
Right. And that's not a bad thing. You know, I know there's some concern, at least there always was when I was in, and I'm sure it still exists, about career. Okay? Those service members that are brown nosing and trying to, kiss the boss's backside to get some kind of way in, right? It happens. Well, it happens in the civilian world. But you need to understand that the single most effective way to land a job in the civilian world is through networking. Okay. Challenger Gray Christmas, which is arguably the premier executive outplacement firm in the world, they'll tell you that over 80% of salaried professional jobs, now I'm not talking super high level, I mean just not first line hourly manual labor stuff, over 80% of salaried professional jobs are landed by networking. Less than 5% get landed by simply applying online only.
Yeah, how much of a misconception do you think that is with people? Because, most folks, when they get out, certainly, well, I would say the majority of people have never written a resume, right? So they don't, so there's skill that comes with that. But I think a lot of folks think that their job to transition and to get a job is to have a resume that they hand out to everybody, and then they sit back and sip their coffee, waiting for the responses to flying in, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And whether it's a resume or LinkedIn, and I've seen this far too many times with folks on LinkedIn. It's not all the time, but I see it again far too often. Folks will put a LinkedIn on their LinkedIn post that, hi, I'm Bill. I've got all this great experience, and I'm available for opportunities. Please let me know. That's not how it works.
Right.
Okay? It's your job as the job seeker to go seek the job. Employers are not going to come to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not a passive process, right?
It's correct. It is absolutely an active process. And, you may have to apply just to complete a administrative process, right? You got to apply online because that's how we do it. But the thing you really need to do is find ways around the application. Connect with people. If you're interested in working for, XYZ company in Chicago, Illinois, find out who you know that's at XYZ company in Chicago. And if you don't know anybody, find out who you know that knows somebody. The study that I referenced a little bit ago about 80% of the jobs landing via networking, the additional data there is that 80% of that 80% are landed by second and third tier networks. So somebody I know knows somebody who knows somebody that knows about an opportunity. That's how it works.
Wow.
And I think without that knowledge, many people are going to work really hard on transition, and they're going to get really frustrated, and their progress down that path from the start point down the journey is going to get, Angel, like 5 degrees of separation. It is. Everybody knows Kevin Bacon, right? Wow, I totally lost where I was going. It was going to be really interesting, though. I forgot what it was.
Yeah, we were talking about the networking, right? With not the person that you're necessarily networked, but the second and third tier folks that are in that guy's network that can help you land the job.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're shy about networking, you need to get over it. I am a huge introvert, gigantic introvert, and when I got out, going and knocking on a door or writing a letter or shaking a hand or going to a networking event, God forbid, scared me to death. But I realized that's the only way it's going to work. Okay. So there's another point with network, and I find it with military and non-military folks is they're concerned about networking as coming off as being manipulative. They don't want to take advantage of people. And you know what? There's a difference. I get the point, and I've felt it myself, but there's a difference between manipulation and networking. And I think that for me, the difference is intent. If I intend to engage with somebody and I want to learn a little from them, maybe see if they have an opportunity, but I'm willing to share whatever I'm able to share and give back a little bit, That's networking. If I'm going to meet somebody, get what I want, and say, screw you at the end, that's manipulation.
Right.
So one of the keys to success for networking is to make the effort and always make an offer at the end. So maybe Matt and I meet for the first time, and he knows he's with was at Stanford, and I'm really interested about Stanford, and there's a job there, and like, man, I want to learn more about that. So I reach out and I go, hey Matt, I saw the Stanford pennant. I'd really like to chat with you for a few minutes. Can you give me 15 minutes? And Matt, being Matt, he'll agree. And we have a cup of coffee and virtually, because I'm in Ohio and I'm guessing you're not. Matt, where are you?
Norfolk, Virginia. My grandfather was from Toledo, though.
Oh, we need to talk later. I know Murphy's from Toledo. Any case, so, he's going to reach out. So absolutely, we'll have a virtual cup of coffee. We chat. And I go, thanks for your insight. I really appreciate it. What can I do for you? It's that easy. And you may not have a big, robust deliverable. The simple act of offering makes it a network engagement.
It does. It opens the door, right? And then they see, by exactly how you just said that, then they see what you're in for, right? What your intent is, because yeah, that is frustrating when you see, let's say LinkedIn, for example, people connecting. Generally, just for me, if someone sends me an invitation to connect and there's no message, I'll look at their profile, and if I don't see, and this might sound cold, but if I don't see value in it for me in terms of what I'm doing, odds are I'm going to say no, thank you. Now, not all the time, but if they come in and say, hey, Scott, I've been watching your content, and I'm a veteran. I'm interested in what you're doing, or whatever. If they add some verbiage to that and it makes sense, I'll accept. But what I really don't like is when you accept and then within a few minutes, your inbox, your DM is a sales pitch, and it's like, I don't even know you. Why am I going to stop everything I'm doing to help you, or to buy whatever it is you're trying to sell me, right? Because they haven't taken the time to in the networking part for the development of the relationship, and we don't have a whole lot of time for getting into deep development with everyone that you connect with, but there are some entry points and some things that you need to understand. What you just said is absolutely the way to go about it, and reaching out and that initial stage of networking. So that's a big deal.
One of the points I just made to kind of extend the conversation a little bit here is that it's your job as the candidate to stand out, right? To make yourself notable. One of the most effective ways to do that is pretty simple. Answer every one of the employer's asks, okay? Just answer what they're asking. Where do you find out the ask? You look at the job posting. Think of the job posting or the job description or job advertisement, whatever it's called, whatever they want to call it. Think about that as a menu of things they're asking the employment market for. We're asking for someone that can deliver these kind of results. We're asking for someone that's got this kind of experience. We're asking for somebody with this kind of education. That's their list of asks. And I can tell you that even reasonably well trained and developed hiring managers and HR managers, they're going to use that as the basis for their entire interview process, the entire selection process. Okay. So early on, by the way, I'm going to add a few things together. Early on, the selection process is all about screening people out. Okay. So we post a job with our list of asks, and we have one opening and we get 400 applications, right? Guess what? I'm not going to sit and look at 400. We're going to look at things really quickly and go, yeah, I don't like the font. I don't like this. Average resume gets 6 to 12 seconds of review on its first. That's it. So small things like misspellings and bad fonts and, bad form automatically bounce. You can be the most qualified, but you have not presented yourself as the most qualified, right? So let's say you get through that and they weed everybody out and they go, man, David is a pretty attractive candidate. His resume looks great. We want to bring him in and talk to him. Maybe it's a phone interview, maybe it's in person, regardless of the interview formats. And there's a bunch of different ones of those. We want to bring him in and we want to talk to him. Your job there is to be prepared to answer everything they're asking and to answer it in a way that lands well on their ears. Okay. So what does that mean? You want to be able to talk to them about, if they're asking for 3 years of experience, say, I notice you're asking for 3 years of experience in nuclear medicine. I don't know, make something up here, right? And let me describe my experience in that particular area. Okay. And you want to use language that they're going to understand. There's a phrase somewhere it came up, says nothing sounds sweeter than the sound to a man than the sound of his name. Or his name or something like that. Shakespeare or something. Same thing in the job interview. One of the first things I did when I interviewed, they asked me, what'd you do in the military? I said, well, I was a 90 Alpha 5 Papa 3 Romeo.
What?
I knew exactly what I meant.
Right.
The interviewer on the other side of the table looked at me and goes, well, what's that? So I thought I'd help, and I explained it. I said, well, I was a tactical multifunctional logistics officer who was airborne and nuclear, biological, and chemical certified. They heard nuclear, biological, chemical, and got scared, and they didn't understand the rest of it. I was like, wait a minute, I wasn't speaking their language. So I want to answer every one of their asks one for one. Ask, answer, ask, answer, ask, answer. And when you do that, you want to use language that they're probably going to understand. If you can do that, you are definitely going to stand out positively, whether your competition are military veterans or civilian industry veterans.
Right. And I think the other part to that, Bill, if I may, is when you're going through and answering, that you're cogent and you're concise, and you don't kind of drift into other maybe non-relevant parts of answering that question, right? I mean, how often do you see that?
Yeah, this isn't story time, okay? There's a lot going on, and interviewers want to know, one, can you actually understand and answer the question I'm asking? You'll be shocked how many times people just don't get it. So you want to be paying attention to, am I answering what? If you don't get it, ask one time to get it clarified. That's fine. I think people would expect that. And then when you answer, you want to be clear, concise, and complete. And a standard format that many HR folks and hiring managers are trained is to listen for the situation, the action you took, and the result you generated. Situation, action, result. They want to know if you can describe the circumstance you were in. They want to know if you can share with them the actions you took. And then the real bingo is, so what? You want to focus your answer not on the what as much as the so what, because the business world is all about getting results.
Right.
Okay. If you don't produce, especially if you're a publicly traded company, for-profit publicly traded company, if you don't make your monthly, your quarterly, your semi-annual, and your annual numbers, your shareholders are going to start to wonder if maybe they ought to keep investing in you. Okay, so clear, concise, complete answers in a language they're going to understand that relays the situation you were in, the action you took, and the results that you generated. I like to say generally less than 2 minutes for an answer.
Oh, yeah, that's important too, right? Yeah, because maybe there's a whole list of things that they want to get to, and if you're, kind of flapping at the gums, you might not get through the whole list. And maybe there's some important questions that if you would have had time to answer it, I mean, maybe you could have been the person for the job. And when you look at in answering those questions, qualitative over quantitative, right? That's kind of like the resume thing, right? Being able to on paper, being able to make it make sense, right? So if you're able to describe it or present it in a qualitative or a quantitative or maybe a mix of both, that's important because that gets to the results portion, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. People go, well, so on a resume or in an interview answer, I took these actions and I increased operations. By how much? What does that mean? You increased operations. So what? Does that mean production went up, production numbers went up? And if that went up, did quality go down? And what impact did that have? I mean, it just opens a door to a whole bunch of questions and a path that you just don't want to go down, especially if you're not prepared. If you'd have just answered the question, says, based on this situation, I took these actions and we increased production quality by 52%, and our target was 25%. Now, all of a sudden, you're quantifiable, and it shows you didn't just achieve, you exceeded expectations.
Right.
And that's a huge bingo, right? That's a huge bingo.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Bill, I just we are in the zone here. I just realized we're almost at an hour already. That's kind of crazy. Not to cut you off here, but I do want to ask you about your time. How much time do you have to continue on? Are you good for another, 10, 15, 20 minutes? What's your time back there? Say that again?
I can give you another 45 minutes.
Oh, well, cool. Then we'll press. And, some folks might have to go and that's cool too. But, actually, maybe what I'll do is let's do this. Since we're at an hour, let's kind of take a break from the conversation, and of the folks that are here that have been listening, let's ask now if they have any questions. And if not, we'll press on into more of the interview. So, Sarah, let's see, Sarah, yeah, she's still there.
I'm here.
Sarah, yeah, can you help shepherd us now through a quick Q&A, or, folks have comments that they want to have of Bill?
Yeah, you bet. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I actually have one question. I can't see because I'm on my phone, but if anybody doesn't have their hand raised, I have one question.
Yeah, all you, David.
The question for you, you had spoken earlier about being on the promotion list and bailing out to move life forward in the way that you did. And now that you're looking in the rearview mirror 25 years back, do you still hold on to that? Do you have any regret? Do you have still that yearning for having just wanted that one more step? Or is that so far in the rearview mirror that you've been able to move past that based on the success you have? And how long does that, how long did that sit with you?
It is a light in my rearview mirror. It does not shine as brightly as it used to. I think people always can look at their past and go, gee, what if? And the fact of the matter is, my career plan didn't work out the way I wanted it to, for circumstances that were outside of my control. I could either mourn that forever, or I could go, you know what, that just stinks. And, I never got to put on an eagle or a star. And it is what it is. But even though my path isn't what I thought it would be, I am absolutely blessed to be where I am and having traveled the journey that I traveled. This is not what I planned, but I have had experiences, professional and otherwise, that I would not have had that military career continued the way I thought it would. So, yeah, does it sting every once in a while? Not too long ago, I reconnected on LinkedIn with a young man who was a quartermaster lieutenant when I was a battalion operations officer. He was a great guy, said he wanted to go to law school. We got him into the Army's FLEP program, funded legal education. He just retired 30 years as an 06 JAG guy, taught at the school. I think he was a 3-Corps JAG. I thought, man, good for him. And for that long, I went, doggone it. You know what? I've been to 32 countries around the world. I have met great people in different industries. I've learned more about life and the world and culture and business. I got to write a book. I wouldn't have written this book if I'd have stayed in the military. I get to have conversations with great people like you. And quite frankly, from a pragmatic standpoint, I am in a financial position I would not have been had I stayed in the military. I'm financially better off than I would have been had I stayed in the military. So a little bit of a light in my rearview mirror. Sometimes it shines a little brighter than others, but that's a great question.
That was a
I
great answer.
appreciate that, because I think that, so, yeah, and the answer certainly outdid the question for sure. I appreciate that. So I'm on the law enforcement side, not the military side, and that's a tough thing, tough pill for cops to swallow. Often is, especially if you're remaining in the community in which you served, even if your retirement was full service retirement. I think the one thing that we all struggle with is that the shedding of that identity. And for those that had to bail out early for one reason or another, I think that light shines brighter for longer. And I appreciate the way you framed that. I'm going to recycle that response, if that's all right with you. So thank you for sharing that. That was
very good. Great question, Dave.
Yeah, that was a great, good question, but man, you hit it out of the park. I was hanging on every word, Bill, on what you said, and the truth to that is significant, and it's important because having regrets in life, we all do, right? But that's a significant thing not to have regret about, because what you do largely defines who you are, right? And the people that you know. And if you're constantly looking in that rearview mirror, you're going to wind up getting in a wreck. And it might not, it might be a fender bender, or it could be something worse, because you don't have your vision where it needs to be. And the other part of that is just, and this is my 2 cents, and just observing you at a distance, I'm just thinking about your answer, is the hundreds of people, maybe thousands, that you've impacted in that time. The folks that you've helped connect with either the type of job they want, or the process of how to properly engage when you're looking to get a job. I mean, it's all the things that go into career transition. You're there shepherding folks, you're mentoring people, and you would not have been doing much of that up until probably relatively recent, because you would have probably stayed in 30 years. And so, and again, being set where you are financially, because of the decisions you made, that's a big deal, because a lot of young folks aren't thinking about this time of their life. And then having, some stability when you're a little older is a huge deal.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't want to oversell it. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable, and I've worked my butt off in the civilian world and made some reasonably beneficial decisions to give me a little bit of flexibility now to do what I'm really passionate about doing. So, which brings up another, can I throw out a whole different idea here? Because I think it helps.
Sure.
Me. Okay. So kind of full circle, going back to people, to be successful, you have to have some idea what you're looking for. There's a little model that I like to use. I've got it in the book, one format or the other, I'm not sure. Sometimes I use 3 circles that intersect, and sometimes I use a triangle. But there's really 3 things that if you can assess them for yourself and learn about them for yourself, it helps clarify what your future might look like, what your success might look like, what your new career or job might look like. And the first side of that triangle is, what are you passionate about? Without restriction. Okay, what are you passionate about? What's the stuff that gets you up in the morning? And what's the stuff, interestingly enough, it's not just about, wires and mirrors and, unicorns and rainbows. What's the stuff that causes you to get up and work hard and get blisters on your hand? Okay. Because that's passion. To go do that, well, you got to be passionate to do that kind of stuff, right? So what are you passionate about? The second piece of that triangle is, what are you good at? Not just in the context of your current job. Think broadly. What are you good at? Maybe you're good at gardening, or maybe you're good at auto repair, or maybe you're good at shooting trap, or maybe you're good at giving speeches, whatever that is. Maybe you're good at helping friends through tough times. So what are you passionate about? What are you good at? And then on the bottom side is a little harder. It's a little more technical. It's, how can I make some money? What are the career fields or job opportunities that might exist that are sort of interesting to you, or even if they're not interested, what's available, what's presenting itself to you. If you can find the intersection of your passion, your capabilities, and the world of possibilities to make some money, you're going to be further along your path to understanding what you're going to do post-military, post-law enforcement, or in a new career transition, regardless of where you came from.
Right. And so the bottom part of that triangle, that kind of brings the ends together, right? Can I make money at it? And the other thing to remember is you might be very passionate about something, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're good at it either, right? You might be very passionate about singing, but no one else, agrees because, your passion doesn't, it's like if you watch those talent shows on TV, sometimes you get folks belting it out. I mean, they're as passionate as the next guy, but oh my gosh, you need to, this isn't going to be what you're good at, right?
Right. And, sometimes people focus on, if you only focus on one part of it, I'm really good at this. Okay, do you like it? No. Are you passionate about it? No. Well, then why would you look in that career field?
Right. Good point.
And then, of course, I could make a ton of money doing, I could have stayed in corporate America and quite frankly, made a lot of money. It was killing me. I'm good at it and I could make money at it. I wasn't passionate about it anymore. I wasn't having any fun. Okay. So they all interact plus and minus with each other.
And, it's probably also a good thing to realize when it's time to, make a shift, right? Whether it's in the military or, whatever organization you're with, because if you realize that, chances are other folks probably have too, right? And then it becomes your reputation. And you don't want to end in a negative way too. So that's very important. So let's do this, Bill. Let's talk about, I think it's a great segue into, what you're doing now. You own your own company, and you're also active in other parts of transition. And based on our discussion we had, you're also working on the law enforcement side, correct? Mm-hmm. So, I know you're volunteering. You're a advisor, a board advisor for an organization. Let's kind of shift up and talk about maybe some, current events things with the company that you run. If you can just tell us, what you're doing there, and then share with us again some insight on maybe what you're doing as an advisor for this organization.
Yeah, sure. So regarding my individual company, I'm still doing business development work. It's an interesting thing when you're on your own because, you got to be the CEO and the chief marketing officer and the finance guy and the administrative guy and the content creator. And oh, by the way, you get to be the janitor and the IT guy and everything else, right? Different. But relative to my overall business, I'm really focusing on business development in the career transition space, as opposed to the other things I do: strategic leader development, strategic talent development for organizations, leadership coaching outside of transition. I still do some of that, but my real passion is in this transition space. And I work, the bulk of my work now is with individuals, one-on-one coaching people through, right? About 85% of my time in that space, I'm giving away. Okay. I'm doing it pro bono. Now, I am a for-profit company. I like running water and electricity. Okay. So I do charge people for services, but not all the time. And it depends on circumstance, right? I have a continuing stream of work working with employers to help them better consider veteran hiring and employment. Should they do it? If so, why? What's the business purpose for doing it as opposed to just, the feel-good kind of initiative thing? What's the readiness of your organization for veterans, whether they be military or law enforcement veterans? Because, there's the different communities, right?
Right.
And so on and so forth. So that's really where I'm focusing my efforts with the Kieffer and Associates advisory services. The law enforcement side of things, I'm working with a gentleman, John Saporsky, who's the founder of Law Enforcement Connect. He's a former law enforcement guy. He's got a different job now, but part of what he does is career transition work for law enforcement. And he's got a great set of ideas about how to make a bigger impact on the law enforcement community and folks that are transitioning or considering transition from that community to something else. I don't want to get too far into the stuff. I don't want to get, I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but we have got some really, really interesting stuff going on there. And then of course I do a tremendous amount of work, individual coaching, program facilitation, and all that with both Ranger for Life for their transition program and then the Honor Foundation. Beyond that, I'm also an elected official in the little town I live in. So I'm the president of our village council, and was it 3 times elected and twice appointed. So I've been doing that stuff for a while. You know,
Wow.
a new thing that I'm taking on, I think it's really interesting. You know, people have had this conversation about your why, you know, Simon Sinek's What's Your Why?
Right.
It's really important. And I think it's got some legs in the transition community because oftentimes I hear folks that leave military or law enforcement or even other jobs, and they go, I don't know my purpose. I don't know what's my why. And so I'm actually getting a coaching certification from the Why Institute, it's called, to provide online assessments and then coaching feedback to help people understand what their why is. And interestingly enough, beyond that, how does that why manifest itself? And then for what purpose does that why exist, right? So, you know, you take the assessment, it's a robust but not cumbersome assessment. It says, okay, so like my why, I'll use I solve problems. That's my why, okay? And I don't want to get into the nits and noise of it all. But
Sure.
how the process by which I do that is through mastery. In order for me to do that, I need to understand what's going on deeply and broadly. That's what works for me, right? And the reason I do all that, the kind of promise behind my why and my what, or my why and my how, is trust. Establishing and gaining and maintaining trust between people and organizations. That's just an example, and I don't want to go too far down that. But I think there's a tremendous amount of work that can be done early in transition around this why thing. And like I said before, what do I want to do when I grow up? I think the why work, as it's proposed by this organization, can be helpful to folks, whether they're leaving in 30 days or 30 years. In fact, I think it could also help them be successful if they're not leaving a career. I mean, we could, yeah, I got a few irons in the fire.
No, you absolutely do. And anyone that looks,
I have a second book that's really early. That, well, I'll just tell you, there's a second book that's early.
yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that last part. It faded a bit.
Yeah, I said I've got a second book. It's really early. I've got a tremendous co-author that we're having. In fact, next Friday we're sitting down and having our kind of first discussions about what are we really going to do here, and it's going to be I think a tremendous follow-on to the book I've already written. See, the book I've already written gets you from kind of I'm in service or I'm in this career and now I got to transition. What does that look like, and how do I get to a landing zone, right? The idea here is, what do you do once you're on the LZ?
Right.
I'm excited about that one. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, that's the shoot, move, and communicate, right?
Right. Yeah, because once you're there, you perform.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, you know, what I was going to say a second ago is when you look at your LinkedIn profile, and there's a lot to look at. You're a very busy guy, and you're staying busy. So outside of the things you just mentioned, you know, everyone, well, not everyone, but, you know, a lot of people wind up having hobbies, you know, whatever they may be, you know, whether doing stuff outside or shop working or, you know, volunteering or whatever. You're a big volunteer. Are those your hobbies, or, you know, what are other things that bring you purpose, you know, outside of, you know, the work life that you have?
Yeah, well, you know, I love spending time with my wife and I love spending time with my family. I mean, all 5 of my kids are grown. Only 2 of them are even close to where we live. I got 4 grandkids that live all over the States, but my family is, it's not a hobby, but that is my passion, right? I love spending whatever time I can with my family, right? And it doesn't have to be big fancy stuff. You know, sitting on the deck when the weather's good, reading a book and having a glass of wine with my wife. I love that, right? Now, beyond that, every chance I get, I'm on my Harley. I've been on a Harley since 1996. So if I can get out on the bike, I'm going to get out on the bike. That's my hobby.
Wow. You should, if you move to Southern California, you'll be riding all the time.
Well, in fact, when I lived in Monterey, I had a bike. That was it. That's how I got around.
Wow. Yeah, that's Monterey is just an incredibly beautiful place. I as a very young captain, I went there for a 2-week program. It was a Navy comptroller program.
Mhm.
I was a supply logistics guy, and the command that I was at had just merged. It was the Naval Amphibious School and the Landing Force Training Command. They were brought together, a Navy school, Marine Corps school, brought together to form Expeditionary Warfare Training Group Atlantic. And there's one on the West Coast that's, here locally. But because they were blending the 2 schools, there's a Navy process for, how you manage money. Not a whole lot different, but still. So I went to school for 2 weeks, had a blast. I mean, it's a great school, but that part of the world is beautiful. What's that?
Graduate school?
Yeah, NPS. Yeah, right there.
I had several drinks in the officers club there back in the day.
We actually went up to San Francisco too for because there was one weekend that was an open weekend, so a lot of folks went up and enjoyed themselves, shopping, restaurants, and stuff like that. And we actually hit wine country too. I forgot about that. That was a fun time. That's very different lifestyle.
It is. It's very cool up there.
Absolutely. Well, we're at almost 20 after now. Bill, let me see here. I think I've checked all the blocks that I wanted to check on our discussion today. Sarah, is there? Can you give me a quick check? Is there any other questions that we might have for Bill here, or are we good with that?
We just have David still on. I don't know if he has anything else to add. Now he's in the car.
Well, I'm back in the car. Daddy duties today.
There you go.
Hi.
No, I just want to say thank you, Bill, man. You're a very insightful human, and I just appreciate listening to you. I'll certainly go back and read this and take some notes because there's so many good things in there, and you're a really special person. I know that I believe we're connected on LinkedIn, and first time we've gotten to meet in sort of person. So thank you for being part of this forum and format and sharing all of your wisdom with the rest of us.
Thank you, David. I appreciate the kind words. If there's anything I can do for you particularly, just ping me, man.
Yeah, I'd love to just have a live candid chat with you. You're a pretty impressive person, and I just love having these conversations. So I certainly will. Thank you for the offer. Be careful what you wish for.
Well, first call is free.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
Well,
if I can
will
be in that 85%, that would be awesome.
We'll work something out.
Well, Bill,
Oh,
I'm
can
sorry.
I add something real quick, Scott, before
Sure.
we say goodbye? I also really appreciated the conversation, Bill. I felt like it was so clearly broken down. These really helpful tips, mindsets, intentions, just everything that you put down there. There's so many people that I love. I have some very close people to me that are active duty, and I'm excited to be able to send this information to them. So I do feel like, your military career was cut shorter than you would have liked, but I definitely see you as this gold mine for the people that you love and served with. Like, just what you've been able to offer them. Like, I know for me, I'm really grateful for what you are giving the people that protect us. So thank you, Bill. Thank you for being on and what you do.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I very much appreciate the kind words.
It's an honor.
Yeah, amen to that, Sarah. That and got chill bumps listening to that. Goose bumps or whatever they're called. Yeah. Hey, just one thing real quick before we go, Bill, is David, as he mentioned, he's a career law enforcement guy. He has a business that he runs too. Without getting into the specifics on what he does. So even though you guys are connected on LinkedIn, I think that you guys having a conversation would probably be a really good thing for a number of reasons. And then David, you should probably also pick up his book too. So
Yeah, I will certainly do that. Hey, but
Right.
yeah, you're talking to dumb street cops here, so I hope it's on Audible.
So they asked me about doing Audible, and I said, you know what? I want the people to, actually like it. I do not have a voice for radio, so I'm still toying with the Audible idea, but quite frankly, small business, it's kind of expensive. So it is an
For
ebook.
sure.
So if you find yourself outside and off the road, maybe you'll be able to sit down and it's a really quick read. It's 151 little insights, and I intended it to be a hip pocket guide. You can pick it up and read one and put it down in about a minute. So
Oh, that's awesome. I love that format.
Yeah.
Yeah, for us short-term ADHD guys, it's books aren't really.
yeah, well, it's quick and small bites, but 151 of them, so you can eat the elephant a bite at a time.
Awesome. Sounds like my style.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Even though we're at the end of our time here today, that was something I thought was significant in terms of your book, because it is a very ready resource. And not every time you sit down, for me, I'm disciplined in what I do and don't do. So I'm getting a little better at just saying, oh well, yeah, I'm going to read, and I'll pick up, But usually I kind of plan stuff like that. But having a book, the way you have it formatted, makes it so much easier to where that, like for me, I wouldn't have to necessarily sit down and have designated time that I'm going to read. If it comes to mind, pick up the book, I got that, put it down and move on. So I think that's a really smart way for the type of book that it is that you drafted it that way.
Very cool. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. I'm glad to hear that's working out. When a plan comes together.
Yeah. Process is so important, and how you put things together. Well, Bill, we're right at about an hour and 20 plus minutes. So with that, I'm going to thank you again for your service. Thank you for what you've done career-wise in helping people. I know you have an affinity for people that serve, whether it's military or the communities, with our folks that are first responders, the many different types there are. These people dedicate their lives to support who we are as people, our way of life, our government. I often say, and I know you probably agree times 10 with this, when you're in the military, you raise your right hand and you kind of, you understand at some point you may go someplace and be in combat. These guys that are and gals that are police officers, firefighters, paramedics, every day they go out and they're in that zone.
Amen.
And there's a lot that they deal with in doing that every day. And so there's a big risk for them. And so, yeah, you helping those people, I think says so much about you as a person too. You have the intelligence, you have the experience, and you're doing something with it to help these people. So that's much appreciated. Thanks so much for that, Bill.
Well, thank you, Scott. Wow. I appreciate all the great comments.
Oh, amen, brother.
Agree. I second that.
Yep. Thank you, Bill. Yes.
All right. Well, everybody have a great weekend. It's a day in advance, right? Because tomorrow's Friday, but enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch you next time here on What's Next Beyond Service. You guys take care.
Thanks.
Very
guys.
good. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.